Thank you. Oh my God. You know, I have to just say I have so many people I want to thank, but I want to just say this. I've known Randy Weingarten and Tish James a very long time, and they are both brilliant lawyers, should be on the Supreme Court. But I did not know that Randy could preach and Tish could sing. But I want to say, you know, to our friends from El Puente, which is right up the street from Ridgewood and Williamsburg, do not expect me to dance, because there were budget cuts those years, and we didn't get to have that in the 70s. And that really is partly, you know, how I got involved in political life. There were 6,000 of us at Grover Cleveland High School in the 70s in the middle of those budget cuts, and it was a school built for 3,000. So to our Buffalo friends, we know what you go through. And for me, it has been a very challenging, a wonderful journey in politics, but this committee has been a very challenging assignment. And even though I always had the interest in it and, you know, I had chaired the Labor Committee, I always say I bleed union, it was a challenging assignment. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart to Jasmine, to Billy, to Zakiya, to everybody at AQE, you have really made it a partnership for me and a joy and fun to strategize and have those victories, because I had really come close to saying that was it for me. And the support that I get from you and the dialogue that we have has made all the difference. So Billy and Zakiya, I don't know where there she is in the back. She's taking your envelopes from the other end. And I want to say to Jasmine, it was very emotional for both of us, and it really did happen just like that. I really believe that I stand on a lot of big shoulders, and my own father grew up in Queensbridge houses, and when I first got active, I met Deacon Leroy Gripper, and he was always there for me. And 10 years, when I was in office a few years, I faced a very serious challenge from then our colleague, Assemblyman Vito Lopez, who has now been obviously very discredited, but 20 years ago was a very powerful figure. And he came after us with all he had, including a ringer, for those of you who know politics, someone with a very similar name. And Deacon Gripper came over to me at something and said, we know how to read. We know that's a ringer, you know, and we're going for you, you know. And it was really an emotional thing and a strong thing. And he was under a lot of pressure to dump me, really. There was a lot of political pressure. And he and all of our friends in that group, you know, people had known my father. They knew my grandmother. I mean, it really was a big thing. And he was really brave that day, you know. There was, and so you can imagine my surprise. Now the years pass. I did win re-election. I've always been a supporter of our local NAACP, and I really mean this. It's one of those moments you were talking, and I swear you did something. You moved your hands, and I said, I've seen somebody do that before. Where do I, like, you know, in your mind, when you're in politics, you meet so many people, and I saw that last name, and I just got, like, I thought of my father, and really, it's emotional, because, you know, our friends in the Jewish tradition say, Beshared, it was meant to be. It was Beshared, it was meant to be. It's like, oh my God, it's got to be, you know? So it was really nice. She was kind enough, Jasmine, to come to our last MLK dinner dance in Astoria, Long Island City, and I don't even want to tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. So it just shows you, when you are from an activist background, you stay activist, and it's meant a great deal to me. So I just want to say to Jasmine, I thank you, and I know how proud he would be, I know how proud my own father was of everything that I did. I also want to say so many thank yous. First of all, I want to say to my colleagues who are here, and Kareem and Deborah, but also to Councilman Danique Miller. Thank you, Danique. Get up and stand. Hey, please take a bow. We first met when I had the privilege of chairing the Labor Committee, and he was an activist with Amalgamated, and I can't tell you how thrilling it is with all the transportation work that you have done. Was also raising his daughter, I remember, doing an activist dad, and came up and lobbied, and I just feel so happy when I was at his swearing in. That was another one of those very emotional moments, because you feel that journey for someone that you've worked with is now fulfilling itself in a higher level of activism. So to Danique and to all my colleagues who are here, I really want to thank you very much. Yes, again, thank you. I also want to acknowledge some people from my community and my friends who are here. Mr. Gerard Tate, a retired teacher who's been with me the entire time. Mr. Bob Monahan from the Greater Ridgewood Youth Council. Ms. Judy Chin, who's an educator in Queens of great renown and respect. My very dear friend Ira Greenberg, who has worked with me the whole time. And Katie Jedrelenic, who has been a brilliant staffer for me, who worked at AQE. So we got only the best. I want to thank Karen McGee, who I have such great expectations for, and I feel so happy that the whole NYS team is here. And my very first night in Albany, I went out and had a drink with Steve Allinger. I don't know if you know that, 30 years ago. So we were plotting even then. But, I really have great respect for everything that you do and the way that you've handled this already. I do want to say, they had some things for me to say about how we have increased the money and what a joy it's been to work with a new mayor and a new public advocate and a new team and work for that pre-K. And I do want to say the honoree last year, Speaker Silver, I owe to him and his leadership, and it's nothing I do, it is our speaker and all of us in the majority in the assembly who have made this a priority. But what a joy it's been to work with Mayor Bill de Blasio on that pre-K. And how many years we talked about it and it didn't happen. So, it's great to take the credit and get I love getting the credit, but success has 1,000 mothers and fathers. There are a lot of things, though, that we still have to fight for. We've talked a lot. There is a bond act on the ballot. We have in our city 10,000 children more who go to school in trailers. And they've been going to school in trailers for 25 years. So you think about that. That's 250,000 children that have gone to school at least part of their day in a trailer. And I have a very dear friend I went to high school with who teaches in one of those trailers, and I went to see her once, and she said, "Oh, no, be careful when you put your foot down." Are you kidding? Like, this is our children? And what happens, I want to say, as someone who grew up in a modest neighborhood, in a modest life, I myself sometimes feel I settle too much. We settle. Our people settle. Our Queensbridge people, our Ridgewood people, our Sunnyside people. We're happy for what we have. I always would tell Mayor Bloomberg, our children are our treasure. They are our treasure. I don't care if I don't have all the tea in China, the money in the world. I have my Nicholas, and who, by the way, at 16 would love to be here, but was busy. For those of you with teens, he's seen mommy get enough awards that the poor kid's had enough. But I can't, and he's 6'5". I can't tell him what to do anymore. But he's very good to me. But he's my joy of life, right? So we want for our children better than what we had, and somehow we can't seem to get there. And, it's one thing, I want to say to Angelica, I had a very dear friend who used to have a shirt, Bilingual Brains, so be very proud that you can speak 2 languages. But she used to say to me, the struggle is the victory, which sounds much better in Spanish, right? But, it's nice, and I believe that. But I'm tired, too. I'm like Zakiya, I can't wait. I'm like Jasmine, I can't wait. How many generations of kids get second-rate stuff? It's not, and yet we accept it because we're humble people. I also want to say, and then because you've heard a lot of speeches and people talked quite a bit and they were great, and I just, when someone says in government, well, we spend $22 billion on education, and we do, and it is a lot of money, and it is a major commitment of our tax dollars, you have to explain to people that this is not an issue of waste, fraud, and abuse, though that happens. It's not an issue of people finally getting a living wage. I always say, when I started 30 years ago, there wasn't a female principal in my district. So doggone it, as soon as a lot of women enter that profession and they get good salaries as teachers and principals, someone wants to kick them back a pace, right? It's very, to me, there's a pattern there, But having said that, we do spend a lot of money. But I've been talking a little bit lately about one of the things we spend a lot of money on, which is special education. When I was a girl, there was a family on our block that had a special needs child. First of all, you almost never saw the child. The child lived in the yard and in the house, The poor parents, I so remember my mother saying this, like, they had that cross to bear. Like, in other words, they never went on vacation. They never went anywhere. Their whole life was caring for that child. Now, that's a wonderful, devoted thing, but we don't believe that's enough anymore. First of all, with technology, we can have children do so many things that they couldn't do before. I go sometimes to see a place in the city, Bert S. Kohler Goldwater Memorial Hospital, which the Western New York people I know probably at Roswell and other facilities have similar things, where people with profound disabilities are leading a better life. Well, guess what? That's expensive, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And when we talk about special ed, we talk about giving children dignity. We talk about giving them respect. We talk about giving their parents that little break so that they can have some dignity and privacy and fun in their lives and celebrate their child's special needs without feeling beaten down all the time. So to me, it's worth the money, It's worth the money. But I think we have to explain that to people, because it's very easy for people to say, and they say it in my office all the time, well, it's $22 billion. It's $22 billion. What are you doing with that money? It's $22 billion. Well, first of all, we're building our future. All right? Our children are our treasure and our joy, but they are our future. And it's going to be a complicated future. We see that every day. I always say, somewhere in our state is the child that will one day grow up that there will be no Ebola, or there will be no war, or there will be someone who has the brains to solve the terrorism conflicts, someone who will design the wonderful thing that will extend life. We need to nurture those children so that they have their fullest potential, really out of selfishness, because we will be needing them to take care of us and to build the world we want. So I just want to say again, thank you. I better leave that. And to Jasmine, we do it because we had wonderful fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers and my mother is just living in Syracuse, dancing up a storm. I'll tell you about that another time. But, and she is. But she's famous. She's 84 and she's found a new thing. She's singing at Dinosaur Barbecue. And you know what I say? We laugh about it in the family, but this is about life, right? Why shouldn't my mother have a good time? My mother worked her whole life, right? So, and there are people right now in policy positions in this state, unfortunately, and in this country, who really don't believe that. They don't believe that my mother should have her pension. My mother worked 25 years in a hospital. She deserves that pension. They don't believe that, They don't believe that a parent with a special needs child deserves that break. They'll be a better parent when they have it. They don't believe that child has the potential that we know that child has. They believe in I always say people are nostalgic for something that never was. People believe in harsh discipline for someone else's children. And, and this is true, by the way, of all of us, not just the elites. I have it happen in my district all the time. I could tell you story after story. People say, put people in a cage, lock them up, do this, do that. And then the same person will come to you and say, by the way, I know someone, they got in trouble, but it's a good kid, I need your help. So what happens, in the abstract, we're all harsh because we worry and we have fear. But in the specific, we're kind. But there are people right now who want to run educational systems that think children should sit in silence all day. I went to a parochial school where there were 64 of us in the third grade. And I look back, I had a lot of bitterness at how things were done, the cruelty at times and the harshness. But I look back as an adult, I say, my God, how did the nun 64 kids? I don't want that for Nicholas. I don't want 64 kids in a class. I don't want the nun to have to rule or the teacher to rule by fear. I don't want that. I don't know who wants that. But I will do everything I can to prevent that from happening. And I think we have to speak up, in a sense, the old expression, truth to power. Because there are people that come in my office, they have all the ideas, they're solving every problem. No, they're not. We know as parents, local control is important, local input is important, and we're going to continue to fight those fights. So I thank you. I love the dance group, I loved everybody, and I love you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.